Welcome to the Gen Z Money Podcast, episode 3.
When you fail, just go back, think on it, reflect what you think you did wrong or what you did do wrong. And if you learn, then it wasn't that big of a failure because now the next time you know what to do, you know not to make those same mistakes, and you will have a successful thing or outcome.
Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it, and I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Gen Z Money Podcast, where we turn financial peace to your reality. I'm your host, James Bowman, and today we have a special guest in the building. Today, I got to interview a lifelong friend by the name of Jonathan Betancourt. In today's episode, you guys are going to hear his story about his money journey and his career journey. And hopefully, if there's anyone out there who's in the same predicament that he found himself in, maybe this will give you guys some hope. And, and if it can inspire at least one person to take some risks or do whatever, then I think the interview was totally worth it, man. This runs extremely long. We had so many great things to talk about. There were so many things he said that just absolutely blew my mind. So I really hope you guys stick around, and I really hope you guys enjoy this interview. But I'm not going to steal his thunder. So let's go ahead and get straight to the interview. Hey, Jonathan, welcome to the Gen Z Money Podcast. What's up with you today, man?
Man, nothing much, man. Glad to be on here. Thank you for having me. I think it's going to be a good one.
Absolutely, man. For those of you guys who do not know Jonathan, we are longtime friends. I want to say a decade plus. We met sometime in like middle school, and we continue just to do this thing called life together, man. Bounce ideas off of each other, and finances, relationships. I mean, everything. We talk about anything and everything. He's best friend in the world. So it's a pleasure for me for him to come on, spend some time on the podcast, just to talk about money, life, careers, and things like that. So, Jonathan, why don't you go ahead and tell the viewers about yourself, like a little bit about yourself. Where did how was money talked about as you grew up?
All right. So my name's Jonathan. Like I said, I've been long-term friends with James for definitely over 10 plus years. I think we met in like 6th grade in middle school. Currently 23 years old. I am currently a theater driver at UPS. So that is the semi-truck driving at UPS. But a little bit about how money was talked as I was growing up. It was a very interesting concept. I grew up in I don't want to say a poor household, but it definitely wasn't a rich one either. We definitely, my parents definitely worked their butts off. They definitely did what they could to support, me as their child. And yeah, so money was definitely an interesting topic in the household. My dad was always the one that just liked to save, just always, wanted to save for a rainy day. My mom definitely was on the same path, but I feel like as any marriage couple, finances I feel like are a big part of a marriage probably. I'm not married, so I can't really speak on that. But just growing up, I would imagine that is something that is very big in the marriage or the relationship. But money was very interesting. My parents would always, as growing up, they would always try and, give me the things that I needed or the things that I wanted. If they didn't have it, then they simply didn't have it, and they would tell me, and that'd be perfectly fine. I was perfectly fine no matter what. I was always grateful for what they were able to give to me or provide for me. But it was definitely interesting concept growing up. I mean, definitely had some hard times. I'm sure as anybody else. But they always just tried to pull through. They always just try and work extra, just do things on the side, to just try and provide more, you always, I would imagine, you always want to provide a lot more for your child. You want to give them the world. You want to be able to, see them happy in the things that they want and stuff. So they definitely tried to do that with me. And I think they succeeded. But yeah, money was very interesting growing up. And I'll get in more into that when I talk about my money story.
So when money was brought up, was it brought up in a negative light, a positive light, or was it somewhat neutral? Because, and the reason I ask that is because a lot of people think that the wealthier rich, I mean, I'm sorry, the wealthier rich, the wealthier evil. And some people, want to strive to be wealthy, and some people just want to be comfortable in the middle. So was it negative? Was it positive? Or was it just kind of a neutral tool that, your parents instilled in you?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it was more of a neutral thing. Like I said, my parents were always on the, especially my dad, he was always on the side of, always make sure you have, some emergency money saved for a rainy day. Um, you know, I guess it depends on how extreme some people would like to take it, but some people, they'll just save every penny. They don't want to spend, a dime, or, some people are more lenient in like they don't mind, like spending money here and there, they'll just, make it on the back end or just save it next paycheck and stuff. Um, but as far as I would still say it's neutral. My parents weren't necessarily trying to be on the wealthy side. I mean, obviously everybody's going to want more money, no matter what. I mean, and anybody can be comfortable, but if someone makes extra money or has extra money, they're not going to see it as a bad thing. So, but I would definitely say my parents were more on the more comfortable side. They just, bought a house. They just wanted to, pay off the house. They want to be able to, have a nice car. They want to be able to go on vacations, when they can, and just kind of, retire when they get to that age, and just, live a more comfortable life, just stay in the house, or go, do little trips here and there, do trips with me, or just spend time with me. Um, so I would definitely say more on the comfortable side, as far as my family goes, which it isn't a bad thing. A lot of people think that when it comes to money, it's either, you have to make as much money as you can, you have to be the richest person possible, and it's like, you can make, a decent amount of money and have a decent lifestyle, and just, have no problem being comfortable. You don't have to make, six figures. You don't have to make $1 million. You don't have to be a millionaire. You can be that, person making 50, $60,000. And if you're comfortable with your lifestyle and that's how you want to live your life, then you go ahead and do that.
I
It's
100% agree with that, man. I think there's nothing wrong with being middle class. Like, I think that being middle class is everyone should strive to at least be that, because when you're living in poverty, it creates its own set of issues. But also when you become ultra wealthy, it becomes its own set of issues. So I think I agree with you, man. There's nothing wrong with being in the middle, being comfortable.
Yeah, and I'll get into it more as we go, but like I said earlier, I am a semi truck driver for UPS, and as most people probably don't know, semi truck drivers, that is a whole different lifestyle of its own, and you are, for the most part, 24/7 on the road. Um, so one thing that I've learned about driving is you value your time a lot more. And with that being said, you know, if, for example, somebody makes, $100,000, truck driving, you know, I personally, if that was me, I would have no problem, taking a pay cut, making, let's say, $60,000 and having my free time back, or having more time in my life back. Um, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand with being a little bit more comfortable. Um, just because everybody, when it comes to um, their day to day, or, let's say you have a 9 to 5, you know, you get out of work, out of your 9 to 5, and you still have, a couple hours. What do people do? They go home, or, they watch TV, they go eat, they go to the gym, they go hang out with friends. Then you can come home, you can still relax, unwind from the day that you just had and go to sleep and then get back up and start your next day again. When it comes to driving, most people, and I'll just use myself as an example, I'll work, 12, 13, sometimes even 14 hours a day. And by the time you get home, you only really have about 8 hours until you have to go back into work. So when you factor in, showering, eating, and some people, they don't do anything, they just go straight to bed, you don't even have the 7 or 8 hours that is required for you to sleep in order for you to get up and go back and do your next day at work. So one thing that I value a lot more as I go through it is my time. So going back to being comfortable, some people really value their time. So it's okay if you don't make $100,000 or you want to be a millionaire or you want to be super wealthy. I think it really all comes down to if you're comfortable with that lifestyle or whatever your dream lifestyle is. If that's just to be comfortable, work a part-time job, or work that 9 to 5 if you have a dream 9 to 5 job, or whatever it is. It's really just all up to your own individual goals and what you want out of life. And as long as that's what you want, nobody else can take that away from you. And you shouldn't worry about what anybody else has to say about it.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. So let's go ahead. Let's take it back. Let's throw it back in the day. Where does your money story begin?
Ooh, okay. So I would say my money story would begin probably my senior year of high school. Senior year of high school, I was actually when I got my first credit card. So that's when I started learning more about the financial world and about money in general, as an individual. So I got my first credit card, I'd probably say about December of, what would that be, 2015. And I had, I think, maybe a $300 credit limit. I think it was with a Capital One. And I always looked at a credit card as, that's just money or that's just, credit that you can use and then, just pay it off on the back end. Like I was one that never liked to use cash really. And, everybody had debit cards. So just using its credit card was like, okay, I can just, whatever I buy, whatever I need for the week or, the 2 weeks or whatever, I'll just, pay it, with my credit card. And then whenever I get my check, I was working a small part-time job at the time. I'll just pay it off, and it was no big deal. I never really tracked it too much. I never tracked how much I spent or anything. I would just use it as long as I knew I wasn't over my credit limit, it was perfectly fine. And then I would just pay it off whenever I had the money.
So when you say pay it off, are you meaning making the minimum payments on the card to keep the bank satisfied, or are you talking about paying the card off in full?
It was a little bit of both. So at first it was, if I had the money, then I would pay it in full. But if I didn't have the money, then obviously I would just pay the minimum payments and then just wait till I had a little bit extra and then I would pay it off. Looking back on it now, definitely wasn't the best thing as far as starting a habit, because that definitely turned into a bad habit later on.
So, and when you opened up this credit card, were you knowledgeable of things such as your credit score and your utilization? How much of your available credit you're using, or any of those things that come along with a credit card that are not seeing things every day? For example, you see the interest accumulating and things like that, but what about the things you don't see?
Yeah. Definitely at first, I would say I was not paying attention to most of that. I knew about a credit score. I knew you needed, you had a credit score. I just never paid attention to it first starting out, I never paid attention to the interest, honestly. I just looked at it as, okay, as long as I'm not going over my limit, and as long as I make the, at least the minimum payment, if I had extra money, I would, try and pay it off. But as long as I did those two things, I was basically content for the time being. Um, and like you said, I wasn't really knowledgeable. I didn't try to research or go in depth about all those other things. I just looked at it as, hey, I have $300 in credit, so I'll just buy, my day-to-day things, and come, the paycheck. If I had money, I would pay it in full. If not, I'd pay the minimum payments and just wait till the next week.
Okay, so you have this credit card and you're using it. I'm gonna say you're using it in a neutral way. You're not, like you said, you're not going over your limit. You're paying it off frequently. What comes next?
So that basically goes on for a couple of months. I believe in July of 2016, we graduate. And the day that we graduate, I get a call from UPS, and they say, "Hey, Jonathan, we're hiring for part-time positions inside the warehouse for, package handler. Would you be interested?" And at the time, I didn't really have much of a plan. We just graduated, you know, we're very glad about that. But I was basically just, taking a second and just trying to see where I wanted to go with life. Just take a little break, finally graduated high school, want to take, a break for like a month or two and just see what I wanted to do. Because I did have a lot of options. But the day I graduated, UPS gave me a call and I said, well, you know what, this is, I feel like this was meant to be, maybe this is an opportunity for myself. So let me check it out. So I ended up getting hired by UPS. I ended up working in the warehouse as a package handler, which are the people that load or unload the trailers. So I ended up being a loader for the day shift. So the day shift was from about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning until about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So I started with UPS. I started doing that, and I heard about you know I was thinking about joining the military at the time. I was like, maybe, let me see how UPS is. But if it's not something that I want to do, then I was considering joining the military. And while I was at UPS, I was informed that, hey, if you do want to join the military, if you work at UPS for a whole year, then you can leave, go to the military, and they'll keep your seniority. So they'll basically keep my job, and I'll be progressing as if I was still at UPS. So I'd still be getting my years every year that I work there, and still get the raises and everything. But I can still join the military, and then once I'm finished with my term, or whenever I feel like being done with the military, then I can come back to UPS and they'll hold my job for me. So I can come back, I'll have my job, I would have my seniority. And that was definitely the option that I was going to take. So I said, well, if I was planning on joining the military anyways, then what's 1 year at UPS to hold that job. So at least at the very least, if I was to get out of the military, then I can just go back to UPS. So I ended up working there for a whole year, and close to the ending of that first year, I was informed by some people, some coworkers that I worked with, that they asked me, they're like, hey, like, what do you want to do at UPS? Because you definitely don't want to be a warehouse guy the rest of your life. And for those that don't know about the warehouse life in UPS, or any warehouse job in general, when it comes to dealing with deliveries and packages, it is pretty tough. Especially working days, especially in the summer. The trucks can get north of 110, 120 degrees. Super rough conditions. I didn't mind it. I basically looked at it as getting paid to work out, because I did lose a lot of weight, and it was pretty healthy. So I felt like I was just getting paid to work out. But it does put a lot of stress on your body, and especially as you put more years onto it, it can definitely deteriorate your body pretty quickly. So towards the end of my first year, a coworker of mine just said, hey, like, what do you want to do? What are your plans at UPS? And I told him, I said, I want to join the military probably after my first year, just so I can keep my seniority. And he said, well, have you ever thought about going driving? And I was like, I wouldn't want to drive, the brown cars, the people that deliver every day. I don't know if I would want to do that. And he said, well, why don't you try doing feeder? And I said, well, what is that? And he's like, well, so semi trucks, you'd be, driving the trailers that we're loading. And, they make pretty good money. They make really good money. And, that's probably one of the best jobs here. You just have to wait until you turn 21. So I believe at the time I was 19. He said, so you just have to turn 21. in order to drive, but I think it's really worth it. And that's what my coworker was working towards. He said, within the next year, I want to go, theater. Um, so I said, you know what, let me do some research. Let me just check it out. And that is probably the best decision that I made, was to actually just do research and look it up. Because most people, I would assume, when somebody tells you, hey, why don't you, think about this, or why don't you try this, or they give you some advice or give you some ideas. A lot of people would just take it at face value and not really, look further into it. And at the time, I was somebody that never thought that I would be driving semi trucks. I mean, the smallest truck or the smallest vehicle I've driven at this time was a Honda Civic. And, I've never thought of myself even being in like a pickup truck or, anything pretty big. I always like small cars. So, just thinking about, I could be in this, gigantic, 18 wheeler was, it was unfathomable. Like I just couldn't see myself doing it. But I took the time to, do the research, just look into it, look at the pay, look at the hours. And it really is one of the better jobs at UPS. When you look it up, a lot of people say, this is one of the best jobs at UPS. This is what a lot of people work towards. They dedicate, 10, 15, 20 years to try and get into that position. So,
So I'd like to just go back for 1 second. So when you got this package handling job, what kind of money were you making at the time?
yeah. So at the time, I believe it was $10 an hour. Um, and like I said, it was part-time. So we would get on average about 25 to maybe 30 hours at most. Um, and that's for the majority of the year. Once it got to, holiday season, which they refer to as peak season, which starts right after Black Friday up until, I'd probably say, a week or two after New Year's. The hours would kick up a lot, so you were able to do double shifts. So you can I think when I was working in the building, I was getting peak season time around 40 to 45 hours. But for the majority of the year, the remaining, 10 months, you'd probably get about 25 hours. So on average, I'd be making about a $200 to maybe $250 paycheck.
Okay, so you're 19 and you go to UPS, you're making $10 an hour. You realize that, but going into this, you realize this is not the long-term goal. This isn't where I'm going to be forever, but this is what I'm going to do right now until I figure out that long-term goal. And then as you're working there, you get more information from coworkers that tell you, look, in 2 years, you're now eligible for this portion of the job. And at that time, you're able to shift your mindset from now being in kind of idling by just trying to figure out what you want to do and what options you have at this dead end job, to get to the job that you're really interested in, and you really think you want to pursue. And in that time, you said that you shifted your mindset, and instead of going into work and just with your head held down, realizing you're not going to be here forever and you're just here for the moment, but you shift your mindset to the positive, like, look, I'm going into work, I'm getting exercise, I'm staying active, my foot is in the door to where I want to be. And you shift that to a positive. So I just want to point that out, is like, I think that is uh people who are successful in life always manage to shift their crappy situations and figure out the positives, because that's what keeps you going every day. When you wake up and you don't want to go to that crappy job, and the job sucks. You've said it multiple times. The job, it's not an easy job. But when you can look at the positive, and you see every single day you're going in, it's getting you closer and closer to your goals, then it gives you a reason to go into work. And so I just want to point that out, that, you're turning a dead end job to a potential future.
Yeah, and going back to that, I think it is, like you said, you a lot of people can go into their job or wake up one morning and, they hate their job, or they don't like it, or they don't want to go in, they don't want to work, they don't like that job. But a lot of people can't get out of that situation. Um, it is really just about mindset. At least in my situation, it was just about mindset. You know, like I said, most people, you know, when somebody says, you know, hey, why don't you, you know, think about, you know, trying this position, or, you know, think about doing this, you know, a lot of people just won't give it too much thought. And you know, being in, at least in that environment, you know, you're just, you know, taking a package from the belt, you're putting it in a trailer. You know, you have a lot of time to think, you know, just with yourself, just, you know, in your thoughts, you know. And I think that is super, super underrated, which I don't think a lot of people realize, is just having time to yourself, just thinking or thinking out loud, or just talking to yourself. You really look at a lot of things differently, or you really start to open up. um so while I'm in these trailers, you know, just loading packages, you know, I'm just thinking, and I'm just like, you know what, like, I was here planning to just, you know, after my year, go to the military and just, you know, once I finish, come back. But, you know, what about semi trucks? You know, like, you know, he brought that up. You know, he says it's one of the best jobs. He's working towards it, you know. And as I do a little bit more research, you know, I realized that a lot of people are saying the same thing. So it's like, you know, maybe I should try and do this, you know, maybe, you know, I definitely don't want to be here the rest of my life. You know, I don't want to be, you know, loading in a truck the rest of my life, you know. So, you know, why not try and do that? And, you know, you start to weigh your options a little bit. So my mind state in that time, once I found that out and did a little bit of research, was, you know, I can go into the military, you know, do 4 years, you know, and if I didn't want to do anymore, I can come back out and, you know, go back to UPS, or, you know, maybe whatever, you know, job I get in the military, you know, will, you know, go back into the civilian world. Um, but then I'm thinking, you know what? I turned 21 in 2 years. So why don't I just wait 2 more years, just, you know, stick through this job? You know, it is a little bit rough, you know, your body starts to feel it. um but, you know, I can withstand another 2 years and just wait and see where I want to go with this. um and if it doesn't work out, you know, the military is still there, the military is not going to go away. um so that was my mindset going into it, was I was starting to shift to, you know what, I do have these options. um so let me try and just, you know, use them. Let me try and weigh them out. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized, you know, maybe the theater driving job is the more viable option for me. So yeah, I ended up sticking through it. So yeah, so I basically, you know, just grinded out until I was 21. um and at the time, the way it works at UPS is you have to sign a list. So you have to wait for the list to come out, um, to go driving, and you sign the list. And then, depending on the seniority, you know, however many people they want to call up for driving, then they give you a call. So the first time I got a call and they said, hey, would you be interested in, you know, driving? I said yes. So you have to go through this lengthy process. You know, you have to get your driver's, you have to get your permit, you have to get your CDL permit. And
I'm sorry, before you go any further, what year are we in right now that you get your first call?
um
I would assume maybe 2019, because you graduated 2016 at 18 and you worked there. 2 years would be around 2018 to 2019.
yeah, so yeah, it must have been, yeah, 2019. So yeah, 2019, I get a call and they say, hey, would you be interested in a feeder position? And said yes. So at the time, um there was a lot going on between our HR and UPS in general. I'm sure a lot of companies have, you know, pretty bad HRs, or, you know, they're not the best. Um, so they call me up and, you know, they say, hey, you know, you have to get your CDL permit. And I said, okay, I wasn't aware that I had to have that before I started. And they said yes. So um, if you can, have it done as soon as possible so we can get you into the next class. So I said, okay, no problem. Then that was probably on a Monday or Tuesday. And then I get a call that Thursday and they say, hey, you don't have your CDL permit yet. You have to have this done by Friday. And I say, well, I was told that, you know, I was told to have it as soon as possible, but I wasn't told a deadline. And I, you know, specifically asked, is there a deadline for me to have this done by? And they said, no, just have it as soon as possible. So there were a lot of conflicting things with our HR. And for those of you that don't know, it is a pretty lengthy CDL permit test. And for UPS, you have to have other qualifications, you have to have other add-ons. So not only are you trying to get your CDL permit, but you also have to get different endorsements in order to drive or operate certain pieces of equipment. So there was no way I was going to get it done in 2 days. And you even have to schedule, with the DMV to get, the CDL permit test. There was no way I was going to have it done. So I said, look, I'm not going to be able to get this done by Friday. Am I going to have more time, or am I just going to have to wait for the next round? And ultimately they said, you have to wait for the next round. So I was pretty bummed out. And personally, it wasn't, you could say it was my fault. And I can take responsibility for that. I didn't realize that you needed to have a CDL permit before going into it, but they didn't say anything on the paperwork that I signed. So it was kind of both ways. But I should have done more research and just found out, or ask other drivers, hey, what do you need? How's the process like? So I can definitely put that one on me. So I was a little bummed out. So I had to wait at least 6 months. The list comes out about every 6 months, depending on how many drivers they need. So I basically had to wait. And at this point, this was something that I waited 2 years for. And, this is something I was very looking forward to. And now I have to wait at least an extra 6 months. So my mindset at the time was very, I don't want to say it was in a bad place, but it was definitely down. It was definitely a little bit down. A little bummed out. But what? I was like, what? It's not the end all be all. It's not that I'll never get it. I just have to wait an extra 6 months, at the very least. So I tried to, just turn that into a positive. I was like, what? 6 more months. I waited 2 years. What's 6 more months? And for a job that can be, what they say is the best job and what is a very good career, 2.5 years compared to, 20, 30, 40 years, however long I want to work, it's nothing. So I try to turn it into a positive and just say, what, 6 more months isn't going to kill me. So I basically
This just touches, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to emphasize these things. Like, what you guys are hearing is delayed gratification, which we talk about so much on this podcast. It's putting in the work, putting in the drive, and dealing with the undesirable up front in order to secure a better future. Just like he just said, he waited 2 years and he missed his shot. Some of the responsibility he's taking on, and some of the responsibility was also on his leadership that failed him. It's so easy to just miss your shot and completely give up. But flipping it and realizing, like, why am I doing this? Because I want to be a certain spot. It's a whole mindset shift, and it's a continuous, it's a reoccurring thing where you take the bad and you turn it into the good. And you don't turn into a victim and say, these people did this to me, so I'm the victim. Instead, you say, okay, it did not work out. What do I have to do going forward for it to work out? I just want to point that I don't want to skip over this, because these are traits that if you want to be successful in life, it's not just about building wealth. It's about being successful with your family, with your life, with your kids, all of that. These traits manifest in all of those things. So I just want to point that out, but I'm sorry, you can continue.
Yeah. So, so I basically just, said, what's 6 more months? So I basically just try and grind out 6 more months. And eventually come, 2020 hits, and, COVID happens. So, everything's on lockdown. Nobody can really go out. A lot of stores and businesses close. So during that time, since, local businesses are closed, you can't go anywhere. Everybody started ordering stuff online. So delivery took a really big spike, and it was a very big grind. In the warehouse. I mean, they're cranking things out. They're trying to get things out as quick as they can, because we're overloaded. We don't have enough workers. We weren't prepared for that. So at this time, it was a very, very rough patch because now we are getting, twice, at the very least, twice as much workload. And it's very hard to keep up with. So, just being back in the building, just going through that, it's like, man, this is pretty tough. But you know what? You got to stick through it. You got to stick through it. Like you said, delayed gratification, hopefully my time will come and, I won't miss out on the opportunity this time. So, what I did during, I'd probably say the next, probably 3 or 4 months after that, was I was expecting the list to come out. And, prior to that, I had a coworker, which is the same one that told me about the job. He was already in theater, so he made it into theater during this time. And I talk to him every now and then because now he has a completely different schedule. He's working crazy hours. So when I have the chance to talk to him, I always ask him like, "Hey, how are you liking it? How is it?" He's like, "Hey, it's a big transition, but it is 100% worth it." So then I ask him again. I'm like, "Hey, like, what should I be doing now while I'm waiting for the theater list to come out?" Because the first time, I didn't do too much research into that extent of the process and everything. So I'm like, what do I need to do now? And he says, "Hey, man, just start learning everything you need to right now. Like, start preparing for your CDL, your permit. Start learning all the questions, learning all the knowledge and everything. Just learn as much as you can, so that way when you go in, you're completely focused on learning how to drive. You don't have to worry about verbiage. You don't have to worry about any terms or anything. You just need to worry about driving, and driving, just practicing driving." And I said,
So
okay.
let's touch on that just for 1 second. I don't want you to skip over that because that is super duper important. What you did was you looked around to your network and you found people or a person that was in the spot you wanted to be, and you reached out, and they were more than willing to give you the advice and stuff. Here's the thing, guys. There's a saying that your network is your net worth. So the people you hang around with, the people you associate yourself with, are who you become. So if you hang out with people who don't have much drive, people who are lazy or have bad characteristics, that is who you become sooner or later. So you always want to be associating yourself or getting in the circle of people that are where you want to be. And this is a prime example of that. He found someone who actually went through the process recently, had all the inside knowledge, and that's who he took his advice from. He didn't take his advice from Joe Schmo in the truck that's still loading boxes, because if you take your advice from Joe Schmo that's in the truck loading boxes, that's where you're going to end up. You want to always model yourself and follow in the footsteps of people who are in the place that you want to be. And this is a prime example of that, finding someone who went through the process and taking the advice from them. Anyone who is successful, they are always willing to look back and reach out their hand and grab other people. It's just because the same persona that makes you successful is the same persona that's going to keep you humble enough to help other people replicate your success, which is what this podcast is about. It's about, now I'm on the path to wealth. I'm on the path to financial peace and financial independence. So now it's an obligation of mine to turn around and reach out my hand and grab you guys and pull you guys along and teach you everything that was taught to me by someone else. And so that's exactly what's demonstrated right here.
Yeah, and touching up on that, it really is, when it comes to your networking and the people you surround yourself with, it is very, very important. Going back to what I said, this was a guy that he's the one that told me, he was in my position. We were both loading packages in a truck, and he's the one that brought the idea to me. So now he's in that position and he's able to give me a little bit of advice as somebody that's brand new. And when it comes to the financial world, or when it comes to anything in general, I think it is a lot more relatable. And I believe you said this on your first episode of your podcast, that it is a lot more relatable to the guy that has 2 or 3 houses versus the guy that has 600. So it's a lot more relatable in my situation for the guy that just started driving, just got into that position, and he's still learning the ropes and he's still learning as he goes, versus the guy that's been driving for 30 plus years. It makes it more relatable because they are they're closer to your situation, or at least to your current situation. But I feel like it also, not necessarily brings a peace of mind, but it also, like, you can kind of understand the emotions, or it puts you a little bit at ease. So like him telling me, like, hey, it is a big transition, but and I'm still going through the transition, but I think it is 100% worth it. Hearing that, me not knowing what I'm really getting myself into, it's a bit of a relief because he was in my same position. We were both doing the same thing. So if he's able to do that transition, and he's able to go through it and he thinks it's worth it, then it puts my mind a little bit at ease that if he can do it, I can do it. And a lot of my coworkers at the time, I even told them about it, and they're like, you know what, that might be a good option. So a lot of us, at least the close coworkers, the close people that I was working with day to day, we were all thinking about it, and we were all trying to make, that jump and try and get into it. And currently, I'd probably say about 4 of my coworkers that I worked with in the building, we're now all drivers. So, it even if you're not surrounding yourself with those people that you aspire to be, at least surround yourself with the people that have same goals in mind, because you guys can work off one another. Like me and my coworkers, we would talk about it, here and there, and we were learning a little bit more because everybody's doing their individual research, everybody's thinking, everybody has different thoughts. So, 2 minds are better than one. There are a lot of things that other people can think of that you would never think of, or you just haven't thought of yet. So when you surround yourself with those people that want to become successful, or have the same goals in line with you, you learn a lot more emotionally and mentally. It puts you in a better state. It's more reassuring. And then also having those people that you can talk to that are in your the position that you want to be, they can give you the advice that you need to know, and it helps you tenfold. All those coworkers, even the driver, that just made it into driving, those people, if it weren't for them, I don't think I would have been driving at all. I don't think I would have made it. I don't think I would have thought about it. And my life could be in an entirely different situation than what it is now.
So I have a question for you. So you stated earlier that you have a bunch of friends that are in the warehouse doing the same job as you when you're in the warehouse. And spoiler alert, obviously you have the job that you're aspiring to now. So podcast over. No, but you said out of all of those friends, 4 of you guys are now drivers. So how do you feel about, because there's a stigma going around that when people grow and people change, it has this negative connotation to it, to where like when someone finds success and they don't do the same things that they used to do, that it's seen as a negative from those who did not grow with the person. So do you feel bad at any point, kind of outgrowing the people who are still in the same position that they were at the time? And like, if so, how do you reconcile with that? Because a lot of people don't want to change. You don't want to find success and change, because from the outside looking in, it can be seen as you being fake, or you being, all these negative things, but really you're just growing and you're outgrowing people. So can you talk a little bit about how you dealt with that emotionally, or how you deal with that emotionally, and how you feel about it in honesty?
Yeah. Honestly, I would say that it's not my place to judge. If I still have people that are still in the warehouse today that are the people that I was working with when I first started. And these are people that have been there already for 10 plus years, 15 plus years. So they're kind of used to it. So they don't really see a benefit in transitioning into driving. They like their part-time job. They make pretty decent money because you get raises every year. So everybody has, like I said before, everybody has that different version of what their ideal life is or what they're just comfortable with. And I feel like the older people that I used to work with, they're just comfortable in the position that they're at. They might want little things here and there changed, but overall they're fine in that position. And I don't treat them any differently. I don't talk to them any differently. I still see them, almost day to day whenever I'm, leaving work, they're coming into work. And we just talk as if we were the same old people from back in the hub, the same people that we were all loading trailers together. They obviously ask me, how's driving, and how is everything, and I tell them. And the good thing, to have in friends or coworkers are people that really want to see the best in you or the best for you. So a lot of the people that I associate myself with, they're happy, they're genuinely happy to see me grow. They love seeing this young man, that was in the warehouse now, in one of the better positions at UPS, becoming a driver. This is a job that, like I said before, people, back in the day, 5-10 years ago, they had to wait 10, 15, 20 years to get into. And I managed to get into it, 5 years into my job, or at least my work life at UPS. So it is a big accomplishment. Like, young people in this position, you don't see that often, if at all. So all the people that are still in the building, they look at that and they just say, look, like, and they tell me all the time, like, dude, we're actually proud of you. Like, it's crazy to see, like, you come, such a long way. And, it's good to hear that, because these are people that they actually, they actually mean that. And I know they do. So I think it really goes down to, do those people really care for you, or do they want to see you grow? Some people will say that, like, oh, that's pretty cool. You got this nice job, or whatever, you're growing in life, but they don't really feel that way. They're just saying it just to say it. And you can kind of see with their actions. So it just really depends on the people that you're actually associating yourself with. And for me, looking back at them, like I said, those people, they're just comfortable. Some people don't see the reason to transition into this job. Some people, like, literally can't do it. Some people are, too afraid, like, I can't drive something that big, or, there are some people that might have medical issues that prevent them from doing it. So everybody's situation is different, and it's not my place to judge them just because I'm in, a better, actual job position than they are. It's not my place to judge. So, I care for those people just as much as they care for me. So if they're comfortable and they're happy, doing that job or living their life like that, then, more power to them.
And if they were to ever reach out to you and say, you know what, Jonathan, I really want to get into, driving the semis for UPS. I want the increased income, and, I'm willing to make the sacrifices with the longer hours and things like that. Is there anything you would not do for those people? Like, let's be honest.
Oh, I would do everything for them. And not only them, I do it for people that I don't even know. I have random people that work in the building that, they just ask random questions like, hey, like how's driving? How is it? What's the process? What are things like? And I tell them everything. If I have the time to do it, I have no problem telling them. It is such a good job that, especially with COVID and everything, we spiked up in numbers. We started hiring like crazy. So any chance that I got, if somebody said, like, oh, I'm thinking, I might want to go drive in the near future, or, oh, that's something I might be interested in. I tell them everything. I'm like, look, man, the pay's good. The hours are great. You'll be working a lot, but you'll make good money. I think it's way better than being in the building. If you want to know the process, this is what, these are, the baselines are the main things you have to focus on or worry about. So I tell everybody, whether it's somebody I do know or I don't know, it's somebody did that to me. It was a coworker that just randomly threw that out to me, and it was up to me to actually, go about that and actually do the research or look into it. And that's the reason why I'm in the position I'm in today. So, sometimes it really just takes that one thought or that one piece of advice or option that somebody just randomly gives you, that you have to act on it. If I didn't act on it, if I didn't do the research, I would have been, my first year at UPS would have went to the military and then, came out and God knows where I would have been. But, I took that information that somebody gave me, and it was something that I thought I could do and something that, was a viable option to me.
But
And
I mean, but you really just kind of hit the point that I was trying to make. You kind of just fucking hit it out of the park, home run, because the point I was trying to make is like, we are not in competition with each other. Like, people who are successful, we're not in competition with each other.
not
We're
at all.
all running the same race on different tracks.
Yeah.
So, there's not this thing to where if a new driver comes in and now they start winning, they're taking money out of your pocket. Like, no, that's not the world we live in. Like, wealth is created, it's not traded. So,
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos, he had this great quote that someone asked him about his shares in Amazon. And essentially, what he said was, look, Amazon is $1 trillion company. Of that trillion, I own $160 billion worth of Amazon. What does that mean? That means that he has created $840 billion worth of wealth for other people. That's the point I was trying to make. And I'm telling you, you just completely knocked it out of the park by like, we're not in competition. Just because you're bringing someone up, that doesn't make them competition to you. So if you have that mindset to where, it's a kill or be killed, and you're always in defense mode and you're always trying to, hold on to the security you have, like, really step out of it. Like, you're not paying that person's paycheck. You're not, they're not taking money out of your pocket. You're making their life better. And in turn, that makes your life better. So it's great that you say that, because that is a trait that I think more people should have. And, they say a rising tide raises all ships. And I'm a firm believer in that. Like, there's enough wealth in this world that we can all be successful, whether you're a business owner, whether you're an employee, whatever it is, there's enough to go around. We just have to take the wealth that God gives us and, do right by it.
And to build on that a little bit more, I think that also goes hand in hand with your network. When you have, other people that you want to see the best in them and you want them to grow, you all want to grow together. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same job. Like, I know a lot of drivers, and they're really, really close to me, and they want the best for me, we want the best for each other, and we all grow. But I know plenty of people. I know people that are lawyers. I know people that are in law school to become lawyers. I know people that are pilots. I know a lot of different people that are all just friends, that we all want the same financial goals. We all want to be financially free. We all want to build wealth. And we all give each other little tips and tricks that help each other, and we all benefit from it. And that builds your network. So in the future, if I need a lawyer in this certain type of law, I have these people that I can go to. And it all starts out from just people that they were just friends, and we talked about our goals, we talked about what we wanted in life, and we all want the best for each other because we truly care about each other. And that just continues to grow and grow and grow, and you build off of that. So just a little side note for me, like in the near future, I want to get a pilot license. I want to be able to learn how to fly a plane. So I have a buddy that is now a pilot. So I want to be able to ask him in the future, like, hey, how would I go about that? He went through the training, he has a good school. So, maybe, I can learn more about that, or maybe I can learn, how long does it take? How many hours do you need?
But
So now,
Jonathan, if you become a pilot, you're going to take his job. Why would he want to help you become a pilot?
yeah, and the good thing about that is, I don't have to fly a pilot commercial. I don't have to fly it as a job. That is something that I would use for personal use. And that's something that I've been looking a lot more into lately. That is a extremely good benefit, is having a pilot license. So him, that's his job. That's what he likes to do. But just because I want to do something like that as well, just to get the pilot license, doesn't necessarily mean that I have to take his job. Um, and he obviously loves it because that's what he does and that's what he's worked hard for. So he's somebody that is super passionate into it. So I know that he will give me all the good advice, all the great advice on how to go about the right way, and that will benefit me. And these are things that a lot of people don't realize. They look at the now, they look at the people that, oh, he's now a pilot, like he's going to forget about us, or he's going to treat us different because, he's in that different position. But it's like, if you truly have those people that care about you, then they're going to want to help you out. If you have a question, no question is a dumb question. And that is something that I've learned, especially going up into driving. Everybody says the same thing. No question is a dumb question. You ask it. If you don't know it, ask it. Somebody will be able to give you an answer, and you will now have the knowledge that you didn't know before. So I would rather ask a million questions that might seem dumb, but there were things that I didn't know before that I now know. And knowledge is power. The more knowledge you have, the better you're able to make of a situation or go about a situation.
That's absolutely brilliant. So let's get back on track a little bit. So Harper gives you this information and you end up securing the job. What comes next?
Yeah, so I get the job. I go through about 2 weeks of training, get my CDL license. Now I officially have the job. So now at this point, I'm officially a theater driver. I'm officially driving trucks. So as my coworker stated before, it was a big transition. Getting used to the hours, getting used to the shift, getting used to driving such a big piece of equipment, learning all the routes and everything, was a pretty big jump. Probably one of the biggest transitions I've ever made in my life. But as time goes on and as it went on, you get used to things. You just learn as you go. And the more you do it, the more you get used to it. And now it is such a routine to where, I can do it, with my eyes closed. Not that I would want to drive with my eyes closed, but it's just such a routine. It's just embedded into my mind. It's muscle memory. So now I'm at a point where I'm making really, really good money. I have this career, got good benefits and everything.
Without getting too deep into it, I just want to emphasize so you went from making $10 an hour in the warehouse, working, let's just say 25 to 30 hours a week for 3 to 4 years, to what?
Okay, so now I am making $34 an hour, and the hours range from about 50 to about 60 hours a week.
So you essentially, because you put in 4 years worth of work in an undesirable job, you've now over tripled your income. And although you're working more hours, what has that done to your financial position? Like how was that transition with tripling your income?
The transition was really, really huge. So one thing that I didn't state before was I did have a car loan at the time. I did have a car that I financed. Going through this time, as I transitioned into this job, I learned a lot more about credit. I learned a lot more about debt and finances and stuff. So when I got the job and I started getting these paychecks, at first I'm looking at it and I'm just like, holy crap, like this is a lot of money. Like I'm now making more a week than I was making in over a month in the hub. So it is a huge, huge difference, and I'm forever blessed and thankful for it. But yeah, going into that transition, that was when I started to take my finances a lot more serious, because now you have all this extra money coming in, and you don't want it to go to waste. You don't. One thing that I think a lot of people, once they get to that point, will realize is that once you go from making nothing or having nothing to, being able to have stuff and, just, making a lot of money, or you're now having stuff. You never want to go back to that point before. You never want to, start at the bottom, make it to the top, and go back to the bottom. That is a truly scary thought. And I still think that till this day. I still think that, like, man, I never want to go back to the point where I was making, $10 an hour in the hub. I never want to go back to, making those paychecks, living paycheck to paycheck and stuff. So I always keep that in the back of my mind, not because I'm scared, but more so as a reassurance, just more so as, like, that is the reason why I'm, so, trying to be so strict in my finances, trying to invest money, trying to become wealthy, is that, you never want to go back to that low point in your life. So you always want to, do the best to, stray from that or stay away from there. So when I'm seeing these paychecks come in, I'm just like, man, this is crazy. I need to do something with this. So I started saving a little bit. I started, paying off my car a little bit more, here and there, just trying to make extra payments and stuff. At this point, I have no debt on my credit cards. So I'm grateful for that. But now I'm looking more into, credit scores, how to build it up, and, trying to, credit score is a very, very big thing. So, you can't get loans, you can't get car loans, house loans, whatever. So, I'm trying to, build up my credit a little bit more. So, there are a lot of things that I was doing in that period of time, but, ultimately what I started to do was, save some money. I didn't have any debt on my credit cards. I had a car loan, just pay extra here and there. And basically I was just saving money. I was just saving. There was nothing for me to really spend. Like I said, I'm working, 50, 60 hours a week. So I didn't really have much time to myself or to do anything, by the time my weekend hit, I'm so exhausted from the week, I just want to relax, rest. I might go out here and there, but, I was just, I don't have to go out, just, the fact that I didn't have a lot of time just meant that that was less time for me to spend money. Because everybody knows, when you go out and you're at the mall, or, you're at a town center, you eat, you want to go out to eat, or, you go to an event or something, you're going to spend money. You're going to want to spend money, whether you want to or not. So less time for me meant less time to spend more money. So it was just extra money that I was saving. And then I got to a point where, I had a lot of money saved up, and I'm just like, you know what, like, I want to be able to do something with this. So what I started to do was, talking to a lot of people at UPS, people that have been there for a little bit longer than me, and, just said, hey, where are you guys putting your money at? And, a lot of people would tell me, they were just like, hey, like, we're putting in the stock market, we're just investing in stocks, or, a lot of people have rental properties, doing real estate and stuff. And the cool thing about money is that, or investing in general, is that you can invest wherever you want to invest. So if you want to invest in a business, or start up a business, or a side hustle, you can do that. If you want to invest in stocks, you can do that. If you want to invest in index funds, real estate, whatever, you can do that. It's your decision where you want to put your money. So with that, you have a lot of options to where you want to do it. So for me, the best thing to do at the time was not leave it in a savings account, because you're making 0.02 percent on interest. So the first thing I started to do was look into the stock market. And this is where research comes very, very big. And I think not just in the stock market, but in all terms of investing, is you have to do the research. You have to know what you're investing in. You have to know, where your money's going. Because, I think the saying goes, like, something worse than, investing or not investing at all is investing in something you don't know nothing about. So you definitely have to do the research on what you're going to invest in. So for me, it was just learning the stock market in general. I knew about stocks. I bought little shares here and there when Robinhood was first announced and it came out, just bought little things here and there, but I never really took it serious. I was just like, you know what, just, investing in stocks, blah, 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 just, everybody's doing it. And that's not the way to go about it. You want to be able to do the research, know what you're investing in, know all the terms, know the stock market in general. So all the free time that I had in the beginning, I would just, research, watch YouTube videos, watched a lot of videos, for a few months, up to a year, and, really learned a lot about, investing in the stock market. And that's where I would put my money, because, I can invest my money, leave it in there. I know that, it's going to make a return, or, if you have growth stocks that, the company's going to grow and you're going to make money off those shares that you have. And that was something that at the time was more a passive thing that I can do, that, would be making my money would be making more money while I was at work, and while, I can continue going about my job.
So I just want to go back for 1 second and touch on something that you brought up. And that is investing in something you don't understand. And that is a big reason why people like athletes, actors, actresses, and people who come into wealth relatively quickly, that's where they lose their money, because everybody's got that Uncle Joe who, is a financial advisor, and you think you can just give your Uncle Joe the money and then he's going to be double it, triple it, he's going to flip it. And it's such a big misconception, because when you seek financial advice, whether it's from a financial advisor or whatever it is, it's your money. You need to know where your money is going and how it is growing. If you don't, then you're mismanaging the money. It's not your job to relinquish control of your money to someone else and then blame them when either the investment does poorly or if you lose it all. So I just want to touch on that it goes for everybody. Like, even the wealthiest of the wealthy have advisors in their corner, and the advisor is not to tell you where to put your money, it's to advise you. Basically, it's their job to convince you that you need to put your money here, and because you have control over it. Like, it's your money. And so as soon as you give up control of your money and you start putting the blame on other people on making bad investments and stuff like that, that's where you start losing control of your wealth. So I just want to point on that. It's a super, super important point, and I'm so glad you brought it up, that you need to know what your money is doing. You need to know why it's growing, and that's just something you need to know. You cannot rely on other people. Even this podcast, we might say on this podcast, I invest here or I invest there. That doesn't mean you should just go blindly invest there. You still need to do your own research. You need to understand, like, why does James invest here? And I try and do a good job explaining why and things like that. I have podcasts covering what I invest in and why I do it, but that goes for anybody. So I just wanted to, that's a super duper important point. I just wanted to touch on. I didn't want it to go unnoticed. But
yeah. And to touch up on that a little bit more, also with that, you want to know where your money's going, how's it growing and stuff, but it also has to do with what your goals are, because when you're investing, you still have goals. Maybe you want an investment with a return of 10%, but the place where you're investing right now may only be giving you 7%. So if your goal is to be at 10%, maybe if you shift your money from, let's say, the stock market into real estate, maybe you can get that extra 3% to get to the goal that you want. So knowledge about, where your money's going and also keeping track of it is, I think, very, very important, because regardless of what it is, lifestyle, job, investing, whatever it may be, you still have goals in each one of those aspects. So you want to be able to make sure that you're getting to that goal, or at least progressing to that goal. So definitely, keeping track of it, because if your money, if you want 10% and it's doing 7 and maybe it drops to 6, maybe you might want to look at, another option. Maybe you want to transfer it somewhere else. So that way, you're at least progressing to that goal you want to be at.
And it's also being realistic, because, like, you have to realize, just because you want something, like if you want that 10%, like, you have to be realistic about it. If you have 2 financial advisors and they're both showing you, like, okay, I can get you 6% investing in this, And you have another one saying, I can get you 10% investing in this. On face value, many people will just go with the 10%er. They're a financial advisor, and this is what they say. But if they're investing in speculatory things or things that have no track record of doing what they projected to do, you're perceiving more risk there. So you have to be realistic. And that's why I always relate it back to cryptocurrency. I don't invest in cryptocurrency personally. I think it's a speculation for the most part. And a lot of times you'll see these quick reels or quick TikToks saying, oh, this one is going to quadruple in the next 5 days or whatever. And it's all speculation. And so you have to be realistic and with everything you invest in. Otherwise, when you take on unperceived risk, if you don't understand the risks that come with what you're investing in, if you don't understand, like, okay, just like this thing can go up 1,000%, it can also drop to zero. Like, if you don't perceive that risk, then you don't know enough about the investment to make the investment. So it's
Yeah.
always about being super realistic, looking at the data subjectively and interpreting it how it should be interpreted.
Yeah, I think your risk management is a very, very big part. And just because you're investing money, if you consider it investments, doesn't mean that you can't lose money. Everything has the potential to lose money. It just is the risk greater, or is the reward greater than the risk? So, like I said, yeah, everything's going to have a risk. Everything might have the potential to drop. So yeah, like you said, you could probably get that 10%, but it might be more risky. So would you rather just stay with the 6%, knowing that it is a little bit more safe, and you're not going to have to worry, the next day or a week later you check on it and it's dropped, a ton, and now you're out of money or you lost money. So I think it really just goes back to what your goals are. Some people would like that lower return that has little to no risk, and they're no problem with it just slowly going. And I mean, it's not a race, it's not a sprint to see, who can make the money the fastest. It's just really, it really is a marathon. You want that money to just continue to build. It may not be as fast as you want. It may be, it may be whatever. But at the end of the day, as long as your money is growing, then that reward is always going to be better than the risk.
Exactly. And I mean, on this podcast, you're not going to hear me say anything about investing in the next big thing, because it's just not something I believe in. Some people do, and if they are, I look at the past, and even though they say the past does not indicate future performance, the past performance is all we have. That's all it is. We cannot predict what's going to happen in the future. We cannot predict what Bitcoin is going to do, what I can look at the last 40 years of Apple, and I can make an educated guess that hopefully in the next 40 years, they will do the same or better, but I know that they can do worse. And that's why I'm just a super passive. I'll take my 7%, 8%, 9% a year over the next 40 years. And because that's what investing is to me. It's about the long term. But I want to go ahead and shift the conversation a little bit, Jonathan. So you're talking about saving more of your money, investing more of your money, trying not to inflate your lifestyle. So can you touch on maybe some of your short-term goals, like things that you want to financially accomplish within the next 6 months to a year?
Yeah. So right now I'm still investing. I'm still, investing in the market. Still doing a little bit of things here and there, saving money and whatnot. My ideal goal within the next probably 6 months to a year is to start transitioning and investing into real estate. I plan on buying a house here pretty soon. You know, the good thing, like I said, is that you have a lot of options when it comes to that. So, some people, they can, they'll buy a house, live in it for a year, then they can, rent it out and buy another one. Some people, they might just flat out buy, an investment property as a rental. Some people can do, flips, wholesale, what have you. So there are a lot of
while we're on
options.
that, can you go ahead and explain to people like what is an investment property?
Yeah. So, I mean, an investment property can be many different things. I think the one that a lot of people associated with are rentals. So, obviously, you would buy a property with the intent of renting it out. Your mortgage will be lower than what you're going to rent it out for. So, you would be making what is called cash flow on the property, which is the difference. Obviously, you have to take into account, maintenance, vacancy, if you have a property manager and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, your net will be, your net cash flow will be, positive from all the other expenses that you have.
Yeah, it's essentially just you're making a profit on the property after all of the expenses of the property is an investment property.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned a flip or a wholesale. Can you just give like quick definitions and examples of each of those?
Yeah. So a flip would be somebody that buys a house for, a pretty good price. And they will, renovate the property, put a little bit of money into it, renovate it, and then they'll sell it again for a profit. So essentially you're flipping the house, you're buying it, you're gonna renovate it, sell it back, put it back on the market, sell it, and then you take, all that cash, the profit that you made, and then you go do another one. Um, some people like to do that. That is definitely a more active approach of real estate. But what some people like to say is that you make a lot more money in that time frame. Some people, they can do a flip within a couple months and you can make, 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000. It just really depends on the deal that you have and how much you're willing to put into it and what you think you're going to get out of it, which is all, stuff you have to do research on, you need to be knowledgeable of. But yeah, so that is definitely the more active one. And then another active one would also be wholesaling. So wholesaling is very controversial. A lot of people like it, some people don't. It's in a weird state right now. But essentially what wholesaling is you basically go and let's say you find a property. So let's say I'm a wholesaler and I find a house and it's a little rough, grass needs to be cut, probably, needs a new roof or, needs some updating. And I go and I talk to the homeowner and I say, hey, like, I'd be interested in, purchasing your house. Let's say, I'll offer $70,000 for it. And let's say, okay, they agree to it. So, you write up a contract for, 70 grand. You do your due diligence, you look at, how much you think it would cost to repair it and whatnot, how much you think it'll sell for. So now you have it under contract. And let's say, you find a cash buyer, you find somebody that wants, a rental property or somebody that's flipping, and you say, hey, I have this property under contract for 70,000. It needs this much work, it could potentially sell for, 150,000. I'll sell it to you for 80. So then, that cash buyer, they'll buy the house or, they'll take you up on your contract. They're basically, they're purchasing the right to your contract. So if you have the contract with the homeowner and you want $80,000, then essentially the cash buyer is going to pay $10,000 to now have the right to buy that property. So let's say, they do that, you get, they purchase it for $80,000 and they go and they end up buying the home. Well, now they just bought the home for $70,000. They paid you $10,000 for the contract for the right to buy the home. And now that cash buyer now has the property, so they can do what they want, whether they want to flip it, renovate it and flip it, or if they want to, renovate it and just turn it into a rental property. And you walk away, the wholesaler walks away with 10 grand. So that is a very, I'd say like an entry level, if you don't have a lot of money to start off with, that a lot of people would do to get into real estate. And the thing I like about wholesaling is that the biggest part of wholesaling or the biggest part of real estate is identifying a good deal. It is basically the equivalent of if somebody pulls up in a Lamborghini and they say, hey, I want to sell this Lamborghini for $20,000. Your average person will look at a Lamborghini and think, oh, well, that is a great deal, like a Lamborghini for $20,000, it's in pretty good condition. It has, low miles. That is a steal. So you buy that Lamborghini for $20,000, and then you go and you sell it to the dealership, or somebody that wants a Lamborghini for, 100,000. Just the fact that you knew that that Lamborghini was a good deal, it was worth a lot more than what the person was asking for. Then, that's where you're going to make your money on the back end when you sell it.
Yeah, and I
So
think that's the controversial portion of wholesaling is essentially, I guess the moral compass is that the property is worth more than what you're purchasing it for. But I guess the thing people don't take into account is the fact that it's not just a dollar amount, it's also who has the time to fix up a property, who has the money to fix up a property. So what you're losing in money, you're gaining in peace of mind and simplicity. So
yeah,
I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole of wholesaling, but I do want to say, like, some people may have a negative connotation about the practice itself, but there are many people who do it the right way, and there are people who do it the wrong way. So you just have to fish through which is correct. So you talked about your short-term goals, purchasing a house, getting into diversifying by getting into maybe rentals, maybe flipping, or even wholesaling. But let's talk about some of your long-term goals. Like, I always talk about delayed gratification on this podcast. We're planting the best time to plant a seed for a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. So, what are some things that you're doing today? What are some seeds you're planting today that are going to help you reach your goals within the next, let's say, 5, 10, even 20 years?
yeah. So definitely, my end goal, would like to be to, either full-time real estate, whether it's, active flipping, or doing rental properties. Um, I definitely want to transition into real estate. That is, in my opinion, the best way to build wealth. And it will probably be more on a passive aspect. So I'll probably be going more into rentals the older I go, or the further I get into my journey. But one thing that I've learned about driving at UPS is, or driving in general, I should say, is you know, time. I value my time a lot more. Um, would I be okay doing this job for, until I retire, next 20, 25 years, whatever, then retire? I can absolutely do that. I can, drive for the next, 14 years, and retire at, 40, and be able to retire. Do I want to do that? Absolutely not. It's a great job, and what have you, but, working 60, sometimes even 70 hours a week, that is a lot of hours. So I definitely value my time a lot more. I want to be able to, have a family, start a family, grow a family, be able to travel whenever I want to, be able to just, have that freedom of time. And I think, a lot of people can relate to, you don't realize what you have until it's gone. So losing my time now, I definitely want to make it up on the back end. So basically, I want to transition. I want to buy a lot more rental properties. I want to build a portfolio. Still invest in the stock market. Still, have different type of investments. Maybe, start up businesses or invest in businesses and whatnot. But I definitely want to get to the point where in the next 5 to 10 years, I can, be done with my job. Be able to have that freedom of time and basically work for myself. Just like anything else, like the best place you can invest in is yourself, whether it's, knowledge, working for yourself or what have you. Um, if you have that grind and that motivation, which most wealthy people have, they all work for themselves. They all have, empires or businesses that they've, built, and they work for themselves. And I feel like that is, for the most part, when it comes to wealthy people, the mindset that you kind of have to have. You don't want to work for somebody else. You want to work for, or you don't want to work for anybody else. You want to work for yourself. So that's where I want to be. That's basically the finish line for me. So that way I can have that time to do what I want. And, I can still invest. I can still, do active things, but it'll be on my timing. And, I can actively, choose what I want to do, when I want to do it. So definitely my long-term goal for financing would be to just continue to invest. Like you said, it is delayed gratification. It is sacrificing now so that way you don't have to sacrifice in the future. Live like no one else now so you can live like no one else in the future. Um
That
so
is such a great saying. Like, I end every show by, and it's just a corny saying that I came up with, but it rings true every time. It's like you're only as secure as your ability to perform. And the day you cannot perform for an employer, most employers they're going to let you go, because at the end of the day they're in business to make a profit, to make money. They're not a charity. And so once you can no longer perform, that's when things can get rocky. And so the other half of that saying is spend your life accumulating assets that can perform for you. And that's exactly what you're talking about, investing. So that way, one day when you can no longer drive a truck, or you can no longer perform for someone and have gainful employment, you now have things that are performing for you, whether it's a rental property, or if you own parts of Apple and Apple is performing for you, and things like that. So that was a great, I can really relate to what you're saying.
what people don't see are the people that are, sacrificing now. You don't see them, they don't take pictures on, vacations, or they don't go on vacations, or they're not actively, living that lifestyle now. Most of them are, just straight grinding work. They're just putting in the hours at work. They're saving the money. They're paying the debts off. They're trying to, aggressively invest. You don't see none of that work happening um, until that person reaches the goal that they want to be. So in 5, 10, 15 years, when that person now has the freedom to, go on vacations whenever they want, they post it on social media and whatnot. You see, the big house that they have, the nice cars that they have, all the things that they're investing in. Um, a
People
lot of
don't
people,
see the journey. What they see is the byproduct of the journey.
yeah. And a lot, I think that's where a lot of people, become envious and they become jealous, or that's where the negative connotation comes into play, is you see those things on the back end and you just like, wow, like, like that guy has money, or you now associate that person with the wealthy people that everybody hates, but you don't see the grind that they did to get there.
Man, that is a great segue into the ending of the show. These are 4 questions that I like to ask every guest, just to get inside your mindset, to, see what you're thinking about. And so the first question is, everyone has their own definition of what it means to have financial peace. And many people call it different things, such as financial peace, financial independence, um, reaching retirement. What does it mean to you to have financial peace?
I think financial peace is a lot of things. And it all makes up the one big picture, which is in itself what it means is peace. You want to have peace of mind. So financial peace is not having to worry about the bills, knowing that you will have money no matter what, whether it's a rainy day, whether you want to take a vacation, whether you want to, go on vacation and spend, $1,000 or $10,000. You don't have to worry. You don't have to look at the price tag and say, oh, that's a lot of money. I have to, rethink if I want to buy that or not. It's like, look, if you really want that, you can buy it. Um, it's also, having the freedom of time. You can go and do whatever you want when you want and not have to worry about anything. um a lot of people, that are, parents, that have families, single moms, single dads, whatever, what have you, you know you want to be there for your kids. You don't want to miss when they have soccer practice. You don't want to miss, when they have a piano recital, or what have you. You want to be there for your kid. You want to be able to provide for your kid. If your kid wants something and you think they deserve it, then you want to be able to get it for them and not having to worry. Make sure that your kids have a good life. It's not just financial wealth, it's building generational wealth. I want to be able to be wealthy to the point where my kids don't have to worry about money. And And I think, that also goes with the negative connotation when you look at, these wealthy people. When you look at their rich kids, these kids have a whole bunch of money and, they're buying Lambos or what have you. It's like, oh, they're just using daddy's money. It's like, yeah, but daddy sacrificed a great deal of his life to make sure that his kids never have to worry about money. Um, so I want to be able to do that for my kids. I want to be able to get to the point where it's, my kids, my kids, kids, my kids, 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 they're able to, not have to worry about that, but also at the same time, learn the value of money. Just because they didn't have to actively work for it doesn't mean that they can just go and waste it. They should be able to, I want to be able to teach them the responsibility that comes with money and what comes with these things. And hopefully they'll be able to, learn that, live by that, and pass it on to their kids.
It's great you bring that up because I'm a firm believer that building wealth is not that complicated. It's not that hard. It's just a bunch of math. But teaching someone to maintain their wealth is the real struggle. So you can build wealth for your kids, and if you do not teach them to preserve that wealth, then it's not going to mean anything. And so I would argue with most people to say like building wealth is the easy part, keeping it in your family, educating them and keeping them up, to the point where they, maintain the wealth and they don't just burn it is the harder stuff. And when you can spend your life instilling those values in your children, it's going to carry over to not only their finances, but it's also going to carry over to their marriage and their children when they raise their children and things like that.
Yeah.
But going on, if there are listeners out there that want to start building wealth and they have no clue where to get started, what would you tell them?
There are a couple things I would tell them. The first thing is obviously knowledge. Do your research. Um, like you said, the wealth building process is not that complicated, but you do need to know what you're doing or steps that you need to take in order to get there. So definitely, do the research. We have these podcasts, we have YouTube, we have the internet. With our phones, you literally can just search something in less than a second and you will get answers. So you definitely need to know what you want to do. And for I would actually say even before that, what are your goals? You want to build wealth, but how wealthy do you want to be? What exactly are your financial goals? And then you can build off of there. But I would say that with that being said, you just have to do it. You just have to start. Um, Everybody has fears of something. And honestly, once you do it, it is not as bad as what you make it seem. A lot of people are afraid of, they're afraid of rejection, or they're afraid of, they're just scared to do something. You have that anxiety, you overthink it, a lot of things. And myself included, I have, I've been like that as well. But once you actually just face your fear and just start and you just do it, most of the time it is not as bad as you thought it was. And it's with anything. So definitely just don't be afraid. It's okay to be afraid, but face your fear, get past that fear, and just start, do that thing that you're scared of. And not only will it not be as bad as you think, it'll probably be one of the best decisions you've ever made. Going back to me, driving, I drove a Civic before I started driving. That was the smallest car I'd driven. I never imagined myself driving a 18-wheeler truck with a 53-foot trailer on the back of it, that big piece of equipment. That is scary. That people's lives are on the line if you mishandle a piece of equipment that big. So it is a scary thing. But once you face that fear, and like I have, once I faced that fear and was able to get past that and get used to it, it was nowhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I enjoy it. I love driving now. I love driving those trucks. So that is something that I would never in a million years thought that I would be doing or like, but that also was associated with the fear that I had. So once I did it, it was not as nearly as bad as I thought it was. So you definitely just have to face your fears, go through it, and in the end, you'll be fine. And one thing I'll say, I'll add on to that to finish this question is that, you know, for young people, which this podcast is targeting, you have the rest of your life. You now is the time to start facing those fears, taking those risks, and what have you. Because somebody can't take those risks or nearly as much of those risks when they're in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s. They're well into their lifespan. We are so young, and a lot of people don't have those expectations of us, that it's like, go out and just try those things, go out and take that risk. Because for me, I took that big risk, and it has put me on a path that I never thought I would be at. And my life has been so much better. It has been growing at a substantial rate because of it. So if I didn't take that risk, if I didn't face that fear, who knows where I would have been. So you really have the rest of your life, because we're so young, to take those risks. And if it doesn't work out, then maybe it wasn't meant to be. You can try again. Just like in my situation, I didn't get the driving job my first time around, but it wasn't the end all be all. I could have went and done something else. I could have quit UPS and find another job, but you know what? I stuck to it. Let me try again. You can try as many times as you want to. It really just all comes down to the individual, but don't just give up. Just because it didn't work, just don't give up. You can always keep moving forward. You can always try something else. You can always try again. You can always move forward, because you have the rest of your life to do that.
Yeah, one quote from Brandon Turner from the Bigger Pockets podcast, the OG podcast. I'll link to that down in the show notes below. But one thing that he said, it was revelational to me. He said, when you're investing and you have a decision to make, the decision is determined. How can I put this? He put it so elegantly. I'm going to butcher this, but essentially, making a decision is more important than the decision. And what he meant by that is, let's say you're faced with an option A or option B. A lot of times what people do is they'll pause and they'll get stuck in what's called analysis paralysis, where you're just trying to get all the information. And because you have all this information coming at you from all these different directions, you get paralyzed and you don't want to make the wrong move. So instead of making the wrong move, you make no move. And it happens a lot with investors. We see it every day when I'm talking to real estate people who want to get started in real estate. They get stuck in this paralysis where they want to say, should I buy a rental? Should I do a flip? Should I do wholesaling? Should I do this? Should I do Section 8 housing? Should I do commercial? And the point of the saying is, it doesn't matter what you choose in 20 years. It does not matter. The fact is, you chose something and you committed to that choice. And that rang true with me. Is like, yes, like if you buy that first investment and it completely flops, the fact that you made the investment puts you ahead of everyone else who's still trying to make the choice. So yes, some investments can ruin you, but most of the investments are not going to make you go bankrupt. Meaning you can, just like Jonathan just said, you can make the wrong decision and recover. But I'd much rather you guys make the wrong decisions and recover than to get stuck and not make a decision at all.
And to add on that, even if you do make the wrong decision, or if you think that's the wrong decision, or you have an investment that fails, or you lose money, whatever, like he just said, like James just said, it's not the end. You can still recover, but just take it as a lesson. I feel like that is the whole point of failure. Like when you fail, you learn. Like when something goes wrong, you have to, go back, like recollect and just think, why did this happen? What did everything why did this result come to be? Um, you just have to go back, trace your steps, go backwards, you know, so why did this happen? Was it because of this? Was it because of this? Okay, if it was because of that, maybe then I did this the wrong way. So just, when you fail, just go back, think on it, reflect what you think you did wrong or what you did do wrong. And if you learn, then it wasn't that big of a failure, because now the next time you know what to do, not to make those same mistakes, and you will have a successful thing or outcome.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's go to the inverse of that. If there's one thing you could advise everyone to avoid doing to build wealth, what would that be?
Hmm. I would say don't be scared to talk to people. Don't be afraid to network. Your network is your net worth. And the more people you have in your network, I don't want to say it's the easier that journey will be, but it's definitely more comforting. Um, when it comes to networking, you never know what someone is doing or what their job is or what they're aspiring to be, and what they can be, of help to you, or you be of help to them. And there have been plenty of times where I've met people just randomly in the stores, go to Best Buy, go, pick something up real quick. And I'd meet a feller, and he would, hey, I do IT, I do like IT, do like security, cybersecurity, or, there'll be people that do, insurance, like people that do insurance or whatnot. Um, you'll meet a whole bunch of people in the lifetime, and staying connected with them, you never know what somebody can do for you in the future. um so your network truly is your net worth. um and don't and I will say, with that, in mind, as something to avoid doing, not networking. Also, don't network with people and be afraid, or don't follow up with them. Don't talk to somebody, exchange numbers or business cards or what have you, and then never speak to them again. Even if they're not, of help to you right now, or you can't do anything for them right now, just send them a text, in a couple months, 2 or 3 months, it's about, hey, like, if you're in town, if there's somebody local, would you like to meet up and grab food, and just talk, or whatnot. And always try and stay connected to these people. Don't just use them when you think it's convenient. um because that really does go a long way. A lot of people will try and network with people, and they'll talk to them once, won't talk to them again, and you basically just lost that connection. That person has no idea who you are. If you try and text them or give them a call, 6 months from now or a year from now, they're going to have no clue who you are. They probably don't even have you stored in their contacts anymore. So just keeping up with people. um Take them out to lunch, or just hey, do you mind talking on the phone for an hour? Just talk about, get to know the person a little bit more and know about their goals and whatnot. So, if something comes along, who to go to. One thing that I've learned, that I learned from somebody, his name is Max Maxwell on YouTube. He does a lot of wholesaling, and he now has active flips and rentals, and real estate heavy. He tells people, all the time, that when he networks with people, he says, hey, if you know anybody that wants to sell a house, I'm buying. So, if you know anybody that wants to sell, direct them to me. And he lets everybody know. Don't be afraid to let people know what you're doing. I'd say would be another one. He tells people all the time, and that person, if you keep up with that person, the second that they find somebody, or they know someone that wants to sell a house, guess who they're going to call? They're going to call Max, because they actively know what he is doing, and they're keeping up with that person. So they're going to want to help him. Like, hey, my aunt wants to sell their house. Max is always talking about how he wants to buy houses. If I know anybody that wants to sell, so he's going to be the first person in line that I go to. Um, So definitely keeping those connections and just letting people know what you do. Don't be afraid to tell people, even if you're not actively doing it right now. Just letting people know. For example, I want to buy a house in the next, 6 months to a year. So anybody that I come across, I'm going to tell them, hey, I want to buy a house in the next 6 months to a year. If you know somebody that wants to sell, let me know. And if I keep up with those people, they're going to want to come to me. I'm the first person to know about it. And if you're the first person, or the person that knows the quickest, or the first, then you have much more leverage than anybody else.
Yeah, and just for you guys, just for your own knowledge, I'll go ahead and link Max Maxwell's YouTube down in the show notes below. If you guys want to check that out. But I will just add one thing to what Jonathan said, and he skipped over it really, really quickly, but I do want to emphasize networking is very, very important, but don't be a leech. Don't be a parasite. What do I mean? But what do you mean by that, James? Don't be a leech. I'm saying if you want to learn from someone, if you want to network with someone, don't just look for what value they provide to you. Always be looking for what value you can also provide to them, because no one who's successful, yes, some successful people, many successful people do give out knowledge and information, for example, this podcast, and not expect anything in return. But for example, all the time I see I'm a part of a bunch of investing, real estate investing Facebook groups, and there's always people asking for, hey, is there any mentors in this area? Or, can I shadow someone in this area? And the first question I always ask them is, what value do you bring to that person? Like, you're if all you're going to do is consume from someone, then they're going to be less likely to want to give you more and give you more and give you more, because time is valuable. So if they're giving you all their time, and they're not receiving any type of value back, and you're just being a parasite or a leech, and they're getting nothing, because let's be honest, like, it sounds bad when I'm saying it, but no one wants to work for free. So if they're giving you all this knowledge, they're giving you all this time for nothing in return, no value, then they're going to be less likely to work with you. And I'm not telling you to go out and pay people, but offering to do things like maybe manage their social media, or just to, let's say they have a Zoom call and you just want to sit in the back and you can write notes for them on important topics in the meeting, so they can focus on the meeting and not have to write notes. Little things like that are just you giving them your time, essentially, is what you're doing. It'll go a long way. And so I just want to touch on that little portion of what he said. Like, yes, it's great to be around and network with people who are doing what you want to do, but you should try your best to always reciprocate that energy in the best way you can, using the strengths you have.
Yeah. That's very, very good. And yeah, I didn't touch up on that too much, but yeah, just to add on that just a little bit. Yeah, I mean, people that are in these successful positions, they definitely, you're not the only person that's coming to them. You're not the only person that's trying to, get advice from them or learn stuff from them. These people probably have tons and tons and tons of people that either ask them the same questions or want to do the same things as they do. So yeah, you definitely have to put yourself in a position, especially on that first impression of, you have to, one, mean it when, you're trying to offer value to them, and two, you have to act upon it. So yeah, definitely do that. Like I said, these people, they probably have tons and tons and tons of people that they come across every single day. So you have to make that impression that, hey, will this guy actually be of value to me? And if you show that to them, then they're more likely to want to help you and give that energy back into you and invest into you. And sometimes that's how you even get these mentors. A lot of people have mentors, and they teach them everything they know. They probably started out as somebody that they just said, hey, like, they come across a guy that's doing a flip, like, hey, do you mind if I take all of this trash for you, clean out all this trash in your flip for you, or can I do this for you? It goes a long way.
Just adding value. But that leads us to the last question and the hardest question of the podcast. Are you ready, Jonathan?
We'll see what we can come up with.
If you could ask anyone, dead or alive, one question, who would it be and what would you ask them?
This is a really, really tricky one, because there are a lot of people, dead or alive, that I would love to ask questions to. But I would say the first one that comes to mind, just right off the back of my head, would probably be Paul Walker.
Oh,
And
okay, okay.
and the reason I would do Paul Walker is because I am a huge car guy. I love cars. Um, Obviously, Fast and Furious is a great series. Up until the last couple ones are probably debatable. But knowing Paul Walker, or just watching interviews and stuff about him, he has a genuine passion for cars and the car scene. So I don't think there would be one specific question I would ask him, but I would definitely like to just pick his brain about like his passion for cars, because he is a big idol to me, especially with the series and just him being in love with cars in general. I would definitely just try and pick his brain, or just and I'd probably ask if I could probably spend the day with him or something, and just see like how he does things, and stuff of that nature. But
I'll take that. I'll take
probably
that.
him.
It's hard to always narrow it down to one question, honestly, especially when,
Yeah, because and there's so many people that cars are not my only hobby. There are a lot of other hobbies that I'm in, so there are a lot of other people that I would love to ask a question about a specific hobby. So I would say that one, just because that's the first one that came off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'll definitely accept that. Well, to conclude oh God, to conclude the show, Jonathan, where can people find out more about you or get in contact with you if they have any information or any questions about anything you discussed on the show?
Yeah, so I don't really post on my social medias that much, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast. But if you do want to contact me, I am on them. I just don't post that much. My Instagram is John Sledgen, so it is JOHN SLEDGEND. That is also the same on my Twitter. Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to talk to me about anything investment wise, or anything about driving semi trucks or UPS or whatever, you could definitely feel free to just message me on those two platforms. One thing that I'll just add on to that, the thing that I love about this podcast, like I said earlier, is that we are all people that are going through this journey together. We are people that we're not too far from where everybody else is at in their everyday lives. We're just regular people that we all have a common goal, and we're all making different sacrifices to get to that. So like I said earlier, it is much more relatable to ask questions, or talk or listen to the podcast, or talk to people that are almost in your shoes, very similar, than to people that are already in that very, very successful position. So with that being said, anybody that wants to message me and just talk, about anything, it doesn't have to be investments. It can be anything, it could be life, what have you. My DMs and everything are open. Part of this journey, where we want to get to, is we want to help people. Like I said, I don't care if I know you or if I don't know you. If you want that for you, if you want that financial freedom or that peace for you, or if you have those same goals, then I am more than happy to, give you whatever advice I have. And, James as well. That's why he's making this podcast. That's why, we're here on this podcast together, is that we all have different journeys, but we all want to get to the same destination. So we have no problem helping each other in anything, advice, talking, what have you. So don't be afraid to, it doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be James, but don't be afraid if you have those people that you can talk to about these things or you want to talk about these things. Don't be afraid to ask. This journey is definitely a difficult one. It is definitely one that, the majority of people our age don't want to talk about. If you talk finances or talk investing or the future, a lot of people don't want to hear it. They just want to talk about the now, what their plans are for this weekend. So it is hard to talk about, real estate or investing or financial freedom with other people. The only person that I really talk to with is James. And that's because, that's what we're both into. That's what we both like to talk about 24/7. And even my coworkers at work, I'll be on the phone with them in a group call and we're all talking about investments. We're all talking about, finances and whatnot. That's just because that's what we like to do. But it is hard to find that group of people. So don't be afraid to, try and talk to either one of us or somebody that you can talk to or want to talk to. Just, it is a rough journey, but the more people you have in your circle, the better it is. Like I said, the more emotionally and mentally, it'll comfort your mind. So just don't be afraid. Anybody can message me and talk about anything, and I'll be more than happy to, answer or just, speak on a topic.
I have absolutely nothing to add to that. It's just so elegantly put, man. I really appreciate you taking out the time to speak with me today, man. This was a long one. This one ran a little bit long, but I really appreciate you taking the time to just tell your story and maybe if there's at least one person out there that took something from that can relate to you and took something from it, and if it inspires them, then I think this was well worth it. I will be linking to Jonathan's Instagram and Twitter in the show notes below, so make sure you guys check that out. But we're going to go ahead and get up out of here, Jonathan. I really appreciate you recording with me today, man, and I hope the best for you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man, and hopefully we could do more episodes together. If you ever want me to come back, I have no problem coming back. This, I think, and genuinely speaking from the heart, I really think that this is a podcast that, like I said, is a lot more relatable to people. You're seeing our journeys. I would love to, maybe in the future come back and just do an update, podcast on just, how my life has been from now until then. It's not a race, it's just a marathon. We're all at our own pace. And, I really think that this is something that the people our age really need to hear and they can relate to. So, I would love to come back again in the future.
And you will, man. I really appreciate it. Talk to you later.
All righty. Thank you for having me.
And that concludes my interview with my dear friend, Jonathan Betancourt. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and I really hope you guys picked up some of those bangers he was dropping throughout the interview. I mean, he said some really true things, and his mindset on his career and his growth in the future, he has such an optimism to him that it really, it makes me want to be better, and it makes me want to experience delayed gratification, because he's definitely building a really strong future for himself and his family going forward. But without further ado, guys, I'm James, and always remember, you're only as secure as your ability to perform, so spend your life accumulating assets that can perform for you. Later, guys.
Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it, and I don't need to speak a single